All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Yeah.
So today, we're going to be plugging in
Yeah.
to the world of EVs and specifically EV charging technology.
Right.
There's been a lot of news lately, so we wanted to sort of round it all up and give you a quick update of what's been going on.
Yeah.
And, quick disclaimer before we get too far.
Of course.
We do collect this information from a variety of different platforms. So,
Right.
it's really just for educational and entertainment purposes.
Absolutely.
Accuracy is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Things change quickly.
Right.
So please use this information responsibly and ethically.
Well, of course.
And it is not professional advice.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with that out of the way,
Yep.
let's jump into it. So one of the biggest headlines that we saw was from BYD,
Yeah.
the EV giant,
Huge company.
and they're saying they've kind of cracked the code to super fast charging
Yeah.
and claiming that they can add 250 miles of range to their vehicles in just 5 minutes.
Like, that is so crazy.
Which for anyone who's concerned about charging times with EVs, this is huge.
Right.
And we should mention that this announcement came alongside the launch of 2 new vehicles
That's right.
just this past April
Yeah.
that supposedly feature this technology.
Yeah. It's a really, really interesting development. And, it even caused a little bit of a stir on the stock market.
Right.
Yeah. There were reports that Tesla stock actually dipped a little bit after this announcement.
I can imagine.
Because the speed that BYD is claiming is pretty significant, potentially like twice as fast as even the next generation of Tesla Superchargers.
Wow.
So it's definitely something that people are paying attention to.
Yeah, so I think the big questions for us and for you listening are,
Yeah.
what exactly did BYD announce? How does this technology work?
Right.
What do experts think about, how practical is this? How impactful could it be?
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges in actually getting this out there to the world?
Yep.
And then, ultimately, what does this mean for the future of EVs and for you if you're thinking about getting an EV or if you're just interested in the technology?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So why don't we start by kind of breaking down this claim
Yeah.
of 250 miles in 5 minutes? Like,
Sure.
what is so attention-grabbing about that?
Well, I mean, it's an incredibly bold claim, right? 250 miles in 5 minutes. I mean, that's like faster than filling up your gas tank.
Right.
And as you mentioned, it was tied to the launch of these 2 new vehicles
Mm-hmm.
in April, supposedly the first ones to use this technology.
Yeah.
The comparison to Tesla's Superchargers being potentially twice as fast, I think really highlights just how ambitious this announcement is.
Yeah.
And it really directly addresses one of the biggest concerns that people have about electric vehicles,
Right.
which is the charging time,
Totally.
right? Like people are worried about being stuck at a charging station for a long time.
Yeah.
This is saying, no, you can get, hundreds of miles of range in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
But I think, while it's super exciting, it's also important to look beyond the hype
Right.
and really understand what's involved.
Right. So how are they claiming to achieve these crazy fast charging times?
Right.
Like, what's the secret sauce?
Yeah, so from the information that we've gathered, it seems like the key is this new system that they're calling an all-liquid cooled megawatt flash charging terminal system.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Right, it's a mouthful.
That's a lot. Can we break that down a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So essentially it means they've developed a new charging system that uses liquid to keep everything cool during this high power transfer.
Okay.
And it's designed to handle a huge amount of power, hence the megawatt part.
Okay.
They've also highlighted a new automotive-grade silicon carbide power chip as a key part of this.
Okay.
You can kind of think of this chip as like a more efficient way to manage the flow of electricity during charging.
Oh.
So it allows for faster and more efficient energy transfer.
Okay. So liquid-cooled megawatt flash charging terminal system.
Yeah.
I mean, even still, right.
What does that mean for like how quickly the energy actually gets into the car's battery?
Right. So think about it this way. Charging speed really comes down to 2 main things.
Okay.
You've got voltage, which is kind of like the pressure of the electricity.
Okay.
And then you've got amperage, which is the amount of electricity that's flowing.
Got it.
So BYD's new system can reportedly handle up to 1,000 volts.
Okay.
Now, to give you some context, most EVs on the road today use around 400-volt systems.
Okay.
Newer, faster charging EVs are moving to 800-volt platforms.
Okay.
And there are even a few out there pushing even higher, like the Lucid Gravity,
Right.
which has over 900 volts.
Okay.
So this jump to 1,000 volts for like a mainstream passenger EV is a pretty big deal.
Wow.
And this higher voltage allows for a much faster flow of energy into the battery.
So it's not just about the cars being able to like handle that higher voltage.
Right.
The charging stations themselves have to be able to keep up.
Exactly. That's a really key point. It's a two-way street.
Right. The cars need to be designed to accept that much power, but the charging infrastructure also needs to be able to deliver it safely and efficiently.
Right.
So BYD has said that their chargers are specifically engineered to work with this 1,000 volt capability.
Okay.
So, without these compatible chargers, the cars wouldn't be able to charge at these super fast speeds.
Right.
And here's a crucial detail. BYD has announced plans to build 4,000 of these special chargers in China.
Wow.
However, we don't have a lot of specifics yet on exactly when and where these will be located.
Okay.
So, that's a big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, so that brings us to, we've got this technology, we've got these charging stations.
Right.
What are the experts saying about how feasible this is and what the impact could be?
Yeah, I mean, the general consensus seems to be cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
I think people are excited about the potential.
Right.
But there's also a recognition that there's some pretty big challenges involved in actually making this a reality.
Right.
And the biggest hurdle that keeps coming up is the charging infrastructure.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to have the technology in the car.
Yeah.
It's another thing to have enough places where people can actually use it.
Right.
And we came across some insights from Gil Tal at UC Davis, who pointed out that even building regular charging stations can be a pretty slow process, often held up by things like permits and just the time it takes to get all the parts and put them together.
Yeah, no, totally. And when you're talking about these megawatt level chargers, that's a whole other level.
Exactly. Yeah, the amount of power that these things require is huge.
Right.
Which could mean that in a lot of areas, you're going to need some significant upgrades to the power grid to actually support them.
Yeah.
And those upgrades can be really expensive.
And time consuming probably too.
Absolutely. So it's not just a matter of like plugging in a new charger.
Right.
You have to think about the whole ecosystem of power supply and how that's all going to work.
Totally. And then this liquid cooled system they talked about. I mean, that also has implications for the charging equipment itself, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's not just a regular cable.
No, you're not going to be plugging this into your standard wall outlet.
Right.
To handle that much voltage and current and the heat that's generated during these super fast charging sessions, you need really specialized heavy-duty cables and connectors.
Yeah.
As Gil Tal put it, you need more copper, more cooling, more everything.
Wow.
Which basically means that these charging stations are going to be a lot more expensive to build than the current fast chargers that we have.
Yeah.
And that cost is eventually going to get passed on to EV owners in the form of higher charging fees.
So you might save time charging.
Right.
But it might cost you more.
Potentially, yeah.
Interesting trade-off. Yeah. So I think it's interesting. We've been hearing about these megawatt charging systems.
Right.
For a while now for commercial EVs.
Yeah.
Like trucks and buses.
Right.
Why do you think there was that initial focus on those bigger vehicles?
Yeah. I mean, the main reasons were really the size of the batteries in those vehicles.
Okay.
I mean, they're huge.
Right.
So it takes forever to charge them with regular systems.
Okay.
And then also just the way commercial fleets operate.
Right.
I mean, for trucks and buses, downtime for charging equals lost money.
Right.
So there was a really strong incentive to find faster charging solutions, even if they were more expensive to implement.
Right.
So the question now is whether that same urgency and that willingness to invest is going to carry over to passenger vehicles.
Right.
And if individual consumers are going to see enough benefit to justify those potential extra costs.
No, totally. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, like, do we even need 5-minute charging?
Right.
I mean, for a lot of people right now, their cars sit overnight.
Right.
That's when they charge at home.
Yeah.
And then the public chargers are more for, if you're on a longer trip.
Exactly. And I think that's something that sometimes gets lost in these conversations about super fast charging.
Right.
The reality is that most EV charging happens at home overnight while people are sleeping.
Right.
Public charging is important,
yeah,
but it's really more for those longer journeys or for people who don't have access to home charging.
Right. And Gil Tal brought up an interesting point about road trips.
Yeah.
He said, 20 minutes to an hour fast charge is often enough.
Right.
Like after driving for 3 or 4 hours, you probably want to take a longer break anyway.
Exactly. Most people don't want to be back on the road in 5 minutes.
Right.
They want to outstretch their legs.
Yeah, get some food.
Exactly. Grab a coffee.
Yeah.
Use the restroom,
Yeah.
So there might be a bit of a mismatch
Right.
between this amazing technological capability
Yeah.
and like what people actually want
Right.
and need.
But there are some situations where ultra-fast charging could be really beneficial.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about dense urban areas
Right.
where space for charging stations is really limited.
Right.
We heard from Daniel Hilson at Betterfleet, who suggested that,
Yeah.
if you can get charging done super quickly,
Yeah.
you might actually need fewer chargers overall
Okay.
because each charger can service more cars in a given amount of time.
Right.
So instead of needing, 10 slower chargers,
Right.
you might only need a couple of these super fast ones,
Yeah.
which could save a lot of space,
Especially in a city.
especially in a city where real estate is at a premium.
Yeah.
So, that's a pretty compelling argument.
Totally.
Yeah.
So stepping back a bit and looking at the bigger picture,
Yeah.
what does an announcement like this from BYD mean for EVs in general?
Yeah, I think it's a sign that the EV industry is really starting to mature.
Okay.
We're seeing these big leaps forward in technology,
Right.
not just in the vehicles themselves, but also in the charging infrastructure.
Right.
And I think this kind of announcement can really change how people perceive EVs,
Right.
especially in places like the U.S.,
Right.
where EV adoption has been a little bit slower
Yeah.
compared to other parts of the world.
So you think this could be a bit of a catalyst?
I think it could definitely be a catalyst. And, it's also worth noting that we're seeing some really interesting hubs for EV innovation popping up. Like Shenzhen, for example,
Okay.
is becoming a real center for EV development.
Interesting.
They're bringing together expertise and hardware, software, all aspects of EVs.
That's cool. So it sounds like the big takeaway here is that BYD's claim is exciting, it's promising,
Absolutely.
but there are a lot of factors that are going to determine whether this actually becomes, the standard.
Right. It's not just about the technology itself. It's
Right.
about the infrastructure. It's
Yeah.
about consumer demand.
Totally.
So, it remains to be seen how this all plays out.
So for everyone listening,
Yeah.
think about it. Does the idea of 5-minute charging 250 miles in 5 minutes,
Right.
does that change how you feel about getting an EV?
Yeah. Would it make you more likely to consider an EV?
And then beyond the charging time,
Yeah.
what other factors do you
Wow.
think are really going to be important in getting people to switch to EVs?
Is it the cost of the vehicle?
Right.
Is it the range?
The range anxiety.
Yeah. The convenience of charging at home?
Right.
All of these things play a role.
Absolutely. So much to think about
Yeah.
as the world of EVs continues to evolve.
Absolutely.
Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive, please like, subscribe, share, comment
Yeah. Let us know what you think.
with your thoughts, questions, and until next time, thanks for tuning in.
See you later.